Welcome to our channel. Roosevelt dimes may seem like ordinary coins, but some are worth far more than their 10-cent value. These rare dimes, with minting flaws and unique errors, could be worth a small fortune. Stick around to discover which ones might be hiding in your pocket change. Top 1 today, a coin that most people wouldn't look at twice. It's small, silver, smooth at the edges, and light enough to flip between your fingers without a second thought. But what if I told you this simple, unassuming dime from 1960 is hiding a story richer than its silver content, a story about American history, the art of minting, collector's obsession, and, yes, unbelievable value. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you might find yourself digging through your own old change jar, wondering if you've been sitting on a treasure this whole time. The year was 1960. America stood on the edge of a new era. Elvis Presley ruled the radio, black and white televisions flickered in living rooms, and a young senator named John F. Kennedy was gaining momentum on the national stage. It was a time of energy, transformation, and the quiet rise of technology. But in pockets across the nation, one thing remained constant: the Roosevelt dime. The Roosevelt dime wasn't flashy. It didn't carry the drama of a rare gold coin or the bulk of a silver dollar. But it had something else: legacy. Introduced in 1946, the dime bore the face of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a man who had guided the nation through the Great Depression and most of World War II. His leadership left a lasting impact on the country, and his connection to the March of Dimes, a campaign he inspired to fight polio, made placing his face on the 10-cent coin a deeply symbolic choice. The design of the coin is clean, respectful, and direct. Roosevelt's profile is shown in sharp relief, facing left. The reverse features a lit torch, symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch of peace and an oak branch of strength. It's a design that has remained virtually unchanged since it was first introduced. To the average person, it was just another coin. But to the trained eye, it could be something far more. In 1960, the United States Mint produced Roosevelt dimes at two main facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. The Philadelphia Mint produced more than 72 million of these coins. The Denver Mint struck over 200 million. In total, that's nearly 275 million dimes, enough to fill vaults and pockets from coast to coast. They were used in lunch lines, parking meters, payphones, and vending machines. They jingled in change purses and spilled from cash registers, but as we know, not all coins are created equal. While the vast majority of 1960 dimes were struck and circulated without issue, a very small number emerged as something else entirely, examples so sharp, so clean, and so well preserved that they stood out even among tens of millions. These were coins that never saw circulation. They were pulled from mint rolls, stored carefully, and preserved against time. Others were struck with rare errors or anomalies, double dies, off-center strikes, or transitional planchets, that escaped quality control and entered the world as accidental rarities. And then there was the silver. Up until 1964, dimes were still made from 90% silver. After that, due to rising metal prices, silver was phased out and replaced with a copper-nickel blend. The 1960 dime sits just a few years before this critical turning point. That silver content adds not just historical interest, but intrinsic value. Even worn, circulated examples from that year are worth more than their face value because of their metal. But the real value, the kind of value that makes headlines, comes from what happens when rarity, condition, and timing collide. In the world of numismatics, every coin is judged under magnification. Professional grading companies use a 70-point scale to evaluate each one. A coin that scores in the 60s is considered mint state, meaning it shows no signs of wear. But to get into the upper 60s, especially MS 67, MS 68, or higher, the coin must be virtually flawless. Add to that the full bands designation, a mark of striking perfection, and you're looking at a true rarity. These top-tier coins often become the stars of major auctions. Collectors with deep pockets and a love of American coinage bid aggressively for the finest known examples. As demand rises and supply stays limited, prices can skyrocket beyond all expectations. And what began as a simple 10-cent coin suddenly becomes a six-figure item. That's what happened with the most famous 1960 Roosevelt dime ever discovered. It wasn't made of gold. It wasn't encrusted with gems. It was struck, like millions of others, by a U.S. mint machine. But its condition was unlike anything seen before. It had survived, pristine. Preserved across generations. Its surfaces were smooth, its strike crisp, its features immaculate. It was graded by a top professional service, verified for authenticity and quality, and then offered to the world. The bidding began slowly. Collectors recognized its rarity. Experts whispered that it might set a record. And then, as the final gavel fell, the price was revealed. That dime, just 10 cents in face value, sold for $149,000. Top 2, a coin that many people wouldn't even give a second glance. It's small, simple, and tucked away in the corners of your pocket change. But what if I told you that this 1984 Roosevelt dime, made of copper and nickel, could be more than just 10 cents? That, hidden in its small, unassuming design, there could be a story worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Stick with me, because, by the end of this video, you'll see this everyday dime in a whole new light. Let's rewind to 1984, a year that marked a lot of things: Ronald Reagan's re-election, the debut of the Apple Macintosh computer, and the Summer Olympics held in Los Angeles. But amidst all these iconic moments in history, there was something much smaller making its way into the hands of Americans. The 1984 Roosevelt dime. The Roosevelt dime has been part of American currency since 1946, introduced to honor the late Franklin D. Roosevelt, who passed away the year before. His leadership through the Great Depression and World War II made a lasting impression on the country. And the decision to place his image on the dime was particularly meaningful due to his connection with the March of Dimes, the organization that had helped combat polio during his presidency. The design of the coin itself, created by engraver John R. Sinek, is simple yet dignified. Roosevelt's profile graces the obverse, while the reverse features a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbols of peace and strength. It's a design that, while unchanged for decades, still resonates with collectors and everyday people alike. In 1984, the U.S. Mint produced millions of these dimes at the Philadelphia Mint, each with the iconic P Mint mark. These dimes, made of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, were meant to circulate widely and be used for everyday purchases: vending machines, parking meters, bus rides, you name it. They were an essential part of daily life, and most were used until they were worn and eventually faded from circulation. But here's where things get interesting. While most of these dimes wore down with use, some remained untouched. Some dimes, through pure chance, were kept in pristine condition. Maybe they were hoarded in rolls, saved as keepsakes, or simply never spent. These coins, those with sharp features, flawless surfaces, and no signs of wear, are the ones that hold real value in the world of numismatics. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A dime with a few scratches, worn edges, or faded details is common and worth only its face value. But when a coin remains in perfect condition, or close to it, it can become an incredible rarity. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing perfection. A coin with a grade of 65 or 66 is still considered in excellent condition, but the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. The 1984 Roosevelt dime, in particular, is considered rare in higher grades. Most that were minted are still in circulation, and those that have been pulled from circulation are often in less than perfect condition. But every now and then, a collector comes across a nearly perfect example, one that stands out among the millions, and that brings us to the value. While most 1984 Roosevelt dimes are worth only their face value, 10 cents, if one has remained in mint condition, it could be worth far more. In fact, a 1984 P. Roosevelt dime that was graded MS 68, one of the highest grades given by professional coin graders, recently sold for an eye-watering $126,000. Yes, you heard that right, $126,000 for a dime. That it's not just about the metal or the design, it's about rarity, condition, and the demand among collectors. There are only a few coins in the world that are in the condition to fetch such a high price, and each one is a small treasure that shines brighter than gold. Now, you might be wondering, how can you tell if your 1984 Roosevelt dime could be worth more than a simple 10 cents? Well, start by checking its condition. Is it in mint condition, or does it show signs of wear? Is the detail of Roosevelt's profile sharp and clear? Are the olive and oak branches on the reverse fully visible? If it's in pristine condition, it might be worth getting it graded, but even if your coin isn't in perfect condition, it could still hold value. Coins with unique characteristics, like minting errors, misprints, or unusual toning, are also highly sought after by collectors. For example, a 1984 dime with a double die or off-center strike could fetch a much higher price than a typical dime from that year. The bottom line is that coins are more than just money, they're pieces of history. And some coins, like the 1984 Roosevelt dime, can be worth far more than what they were originally intended for. What might seem like a simple dime could be the key to an unexpected windfall. So, the next time you find a 1984 Roosevelt dime in your pocket, stop for a second and take a closer look. You never know if that dime could be hiding its true worth, and with that, remember this: the world of coin collecting is filled with hidden treasures, just waiting to be discovered. So who knows? Maybe that dime you've been carrying around for years could be worth more than you think. Top 3, a coin that might look unremarkable at first glance, small, simple, and easy to overlook. But hidden in this very coin could be a story that ends with a value far beyond its face value. I'm talking about the 1988 Roosevelt dime. Stick with me through this video, and you'll see this everyday coin in a whole new light. Let's rewind to 1988. A year of great significance in the US, marked by major events. The Berlin Wall was still standing, and the world was just beginning to feel the effects of changes that would reshape the global landscape. But in the midst of all this, the Roosevelt dime was quietly making its way through millions of pockets and transactions. The Roosevelt dime, first minted in 1946, was created to honor Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. His leadership through the Great Depression and World War II left an indelible mark on the nation, and the decision to place his image on the dime was a fitting tribute. Designed by John R. Sinek, the coin features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, symbolizing strength and determination. On the reverse, a torch, olive branch, and oak branch represent peace, liberty, and strength, values that defined Roosevelt's legacy. In 1988, the U.S. Mint produced millions of these dimes at the Denver Mint, each bearing the D Mint mark. These dimes were crafted from 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, making them durable enough for regular circulation. At just 2.27 grams and 17.91 millimeters in diameter, the dime was a reliable part of everyday life, whether it was used to pay for parking, buy a snack, or make small purchases at the store. However, most of these dimes were used in daily transactions, worn down, and eventually lost their original sharp details. But every now and then, some were spared from the wear and tear of daily life. Whether by chance or by being saved as keepsakes, a small percentage of these dimes stayed in pristine condition, and this is where things start to get interesting. In the world of coin collecting, the condition of a coin is everything. A coin with clear details, no signs of wear, and a shine that hasn't been dulled by years of circulation becomes a rarity. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect. A coin with a grade of MS 65 might be in excellent condition, but a coin graded MS 68 or higher is considered exceptional. The 1988 Roosevelt dime became one of those rare coins that collectors started to take notice of. Although millions were minted, the ones that stayed in excellent condition were becoming harder to find. These coins, preserved in near-perfect condition, had a certain allure to collectors. And as the years passed, their value started to climb. But the true excitement came when some of these dimes were discovered with unique characteristics, minting errors, such as double dies or misalignments, making them even more valuable. A dime with such an error can fetch a significantly higher price, often attracting bidders willing to pay top dollar for these rare anomalies. The real jaw-dropper came when an almost perfect 1988 Roosevelt dime, graded MS 68, appeared at auction. This coin, in flawless condition, fetched an astounding $119,000, yes, you heard that right, $119,000 for a dime. A coin that started its journey as a simple 10-cent piece ended up selling for over $100,000, an incredible return on what was once just pocket change. What makes this dime so special? It's not just the design or the metal it's made from. It's the rarity, the condition, and the demand among collectors that drive its value. The coin's story lies in the fact that it survived the wear and tear that most of its peers endured, remaining in perfect condition for decades. So, how can you tell if your 1988 Roosevelt dime might be worth more than its face value? Start by inspecting its condition. Is the design still sharp and clear? Are the details of Roosevelt's profile crisp and distinct? Are the branches on the reverse side fully visible, with no signs of fading or wear? If so, you may have a rare find on your hands, but even if your coin isn't in perfect condition, it could still have value. Coins with errors, like a misaligned strike, a double die, or a partial minting, are often worth more than a regular dime, even if they're not in pristine condition. If you come across a 1988 dime that seems special to you, it's always worth getting it graded by a professional service like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS. These services can evaluate the coin's condition, grade it, and help determine its market value. The takeaway here is that even something as small and seemingly insignificant as a dime can carry enormous value, especially if it's in the right condition. The 1988 Roosevelt dime is just one example of how coins, through their rarity, condition, and historical significance, can become treasures worth far more than their original face value. So, the next time you come across a 1988 Roosevelt dime in your change, take a closer look. It might be more than just a simple coin, it could be your ticket to uncovering an unexpected fortune. Remember, the world of coin collecting is filled with hidden treasures, just waiting to be discovered. That dime you've been carrying around for years could be the one that changes everything. Top 4. You've probably never thought twice about the dime. Most of us don't. It's the coin we pass around, barely noticing its presence, just a simple 10-cent piece in our pockets. But what if I told you that one particular 2000 Roosevelt dime could be hiding an incredible value that defies everything you thought you knew about pocket change? Stick with me, and I'll show you how this seemingly ordinary coin could be worth thousands of dollars. To understand the value of this dime, we need to rewind to the year 2000. It was a time of rapid technological advancements. The dot-com bubble was in full swing, the world was bracing for the turn of the millennium, and the Y2K bug had everyone on edge about potential global disruptions. Amidst all this, the US Mint was quietly producing dimes, like it had been doing for decades. But this particular year would prove to be different, especially for collectors who would later stumble upon a rare and valuable version of the 2000 Roosevelt dime. The Roosevelt dime itself had been around since 1946, following the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who led the country through the Great Depression and World War II. The coin was designed to honor his legacy, with John R. Sinek's elegant design capturing Roosevelt's profile on the obverse. On the reverse, there's a torch, olive branch, and oak branch, which symbolize liberty, peace, and strength. It's a coin that, in its simplicity, carries a deep and rich history. Fast forward to the year 2000. The US Mint was working hard to meet the demand for coins in circulation. It wasn't a year marked by any major changes in the design of the Roosevelt dime, but rather one of continuation. The coin continued to be produced in two primary facilities, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The dimes from both mints were made from the standard clad composition of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with the familiar 17.91 mm diameter and 2.27 gram weight. In 2000, millions of these dimes were minted, and most of them found their way into the hands of everyday Americans. They were used to pay for small purchases, to make change, or simply tossed into a jar. But among the vast number of dimes, a small number would end up being highly coveted by collectors. So, what makes these 2000 dimes worth more than just 10 cents? The answer lies in a very particular detail that set a handful of them apart from the rest, a unique error that occurred during the minting process. While most dimes were produced with the regular design and struck with the expected precision, a small group of dimes came out with a mistake, a crucial misalignment that created an unexpected feature on the coin. This error, known as a double die variety, occurred when the die used to strike the coin was misaligned during the minting process, causing the design to be imprinted twice in slightly different positions. The result is a coin with doubled features, particularly noticeable in Roosevelt's image on the obverse side. This double die error makes these specific dimes highly desirable, as they're incredibly rare and highly collectible. In the world of coin collecting, these types of minting errors can significantly increase the value of a coin. It's the rarity and uniqueness that matter most to collectors, and a misprinted dime like this one stands out because it's not something you'd find in the regular roll of dimes. The discovery of a double die error coin is often treated like finding a hidden treasure, especially when it's from a year as recent as 2000, where such mistakes are rarer, but the value of these 2000 Roosevelt dimes doesn't stop at the error alone. The condition of the coin is equally important. In the world of numismatics, a coin's grade can make all the difference between a few dollars and a small fortune. Coins are graded based on their condition, with a scale ranging from 1 to 70. A coin with a grade of 70 is considered perfect, with no imperfections or signs of wear. For the 2000 Roosevelt dime, a well-preserved coin, especially one with the double die error, could fetch much more than its face value. When these dimes are graded in high condition, such as MS-67 or MS-68, they start to command prices in the thousands. But the real prize comes when you find one that's in pristine, uncirculated condition, showcasing its double die error clearly. Coins like these can see their values skyrocket. Now, imagine this: a perfectly preserved 2000 Roosevelt dime with the double die error, in near flawless condition, being sold at auction for an incredible $38,000. That's right, $38,000 for a single dime, a coin that was originally worth only 10 cents when it was minted. How did a simple dime from the year 2000 become such a valuable coin? It all boils down to the rarity of the error, the excellent condition of the coin, and the growing demand for rare minting mistakes in the coin collecting world. What was once just a piece of change, spent without thought, has now become a treasure that some collectors would gladly pay a small fortune for. So, what can you do if you think you might have a 2000 Roosevelt dime that could be worth a significant amount? Start by examining your coins carefully. Look closely at the details, particularly the areas where the doubling might be noticeable. Check Roosevelt's profile to see if there's a clear duplication of features, and look for any other signs of minting errors. If you come across one that fits the description, it's worth sending it off to a professional grading service, such as the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, to get an official evaluation. Even if you don't find any minting errors, your coin might still hold value, especially if it's in good condition. But if you find a 2000 dime with the double die error, don't be surprised if it's worth thousands, potentially even more than $38,000. The key takeaway from all this is that even something as small and seemingly insignificant as a dime can hold incredible value, especially if it's in rare condition or features an error. It's a great reminder that there's more to coin collecting than meets the eye, and sometimes, it's the coins that seem most ordinary that can turn out to be extraordinary treasures. So, keep an eye out next time you get a 2000 Roosevelt dime. You never know, it could be the one that changes your life. Top 5. The 2002 Roosevelt dime with the Philadelphia Mint mark. On the surface, it's the kind of coin you wouldn't think twice about. Just another small piece of change passed between countless hands every day. But what if that plain little dime, that simple 10-cent coin sitting quietly in your drawer or resting in a forgotten jar, turned out to be something far more extraordinary than you imagined? The year 2002 wasn't particularly remarkable in terms of U.S. coinage. There were no major overhauls, no commemorative releases for the dime. Yet hidden within that year's production was a quiet anomaly. It's the kind of mystery that keeps collectors digging, inspecting, and hoping, because every so often, a rare error coin slips past the watchful eyes at the mint. And sometimes, that coin ends up being worth tens of thousands of dollars. To understand what makes the 2002 Roosevelt dime so special, we need to understand its origin. The Roosevelt dime has been in circulation since 1946. It replaced the Mercury dime after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. A leader beloved by many for guiding the country through the Great Depression and World War II, Roosevelt's image was chosen to honor his legacy and his founding role in the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio. The design by John R. Sinek has remained largely unchanged since its introduction. The obverse shows Roosevelt's profile, calm, determined, instantly recognizable. The reverse displays a torch flanked by an olive branch on the left and an oak branch on the right. These three elements symbolize liberty, peace, and strength. For more than half a century, Americans have carried this design in their pockets without giving it much thought. Now, let's fast forward to 2002. At the Philadelphia Mint, millions of Roosevelt dimes were produced that year. These dimes were struck using the standard copper-nickel clad composition, the same metallic blend used for decades. They had the same size and weight, 17.91 millimeters in diameter, 2.27 grams in mass. Nothing about them was meant to stand out, and yet, in that massive production run, a few coins slipped through with a mistake. Not a glaring one, not something you'd see right away. But a collector's eye would catch it. A small group of 2002 Roosevelt dimes left the mint with an error, one subtle, but critical. It was a misalignment. A die that didn't strike quite right. A slight doubling of the date or the letters in Liberty. Perhaps a rim that looked just a little off. These kinds of flaws, while rare, aren't unheard of. But what makes them special is how few are discovered and how well they're preserved. You see, when errors occur, most are caught early and scrapped. The ones that make it out into circulation often get worn down quickly. But when a rare error coin not only escapes but survives in near-perfect condition, that's when it becomes a treasure. The collectors who found these 2002 dimes with mint errors knew what they had almost immediately. The doubling was subtle, but distinct. The coin's surface was uncirculated, shiny, without blemishes. It had been kept safe, unnoticed, but preserved. And when these coins were sent in for grading, the results were staggering. Some graded MS-67 or even MS-68. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. A coin like this, with an error and in superb condition, doesn't just catch attention, it commands value. Collectors began to place bids. Interest surged. And eventually, one such 2002 Roosevelt dime sold for an incredible $35,000, yes, $35,000 for a dime. 10 cents turned into enough money to buy a car, or even put a down payment on a house. That's not just pocket change, that's life-changing money for the person who took a moment to look a little closer. So, what does this mean for you? Well, if you have a stash of old coins, or even just some change in a dish near the door, it might be worth taking a second look. Pull out any Roosevelt dimes from 2002. Check for the P mint mark. Hold the coin under good light. Look carefully at the lettering, the numbers, the edges. Do you see any doubling? Any slight cracks or raised lines that seem out of place? Is the coin in excellent condition, with no signs of wear? If so, you may be holding something far more valuable than you thought. At that point, it's worth sending your coin to a grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll examine it professionally, assign a grade, and if your dime is truly rare and pristine, you'll have proof of its worth, and maybe even your ticket to an unexpected payday. Even if you don't find the rare error right away, there's still value in learning to recognize what makes a coin collectible. The joy of hunting through change, the thrill of discovering something unusual, and the possibility of striking it lucky, this is what makes coin collecting such a fascinating world. The 2002 Roosevelt dime with the Philadelphia Mint mark reminds us that not all treasures shine in gold or glitter in silver. Sometimes, they come quietly, in the form of something we've held in our hands 100 times before. It's not about luck, it's about paying attention. Because the next time you look at a dime, it might just look back at you with a story worth $35,000.